Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate. We're red everywhere, essentially, down by 4-5%.
This could be the most serious recession in decades.
China is now reporting many more cases.
The outbreak spreads.
The new coronavirus may be the first pandemic in recent memory to shut down the world.
So Johnny, that video ends with the most very poignant question and says, what now? But first, let's just pick up on a few things. Firstly, the music, I've got to say, I recognize it. It says, look out, here I come, this is me. This is John Rabie. John, just reflecting over that video, you have lived through some incredible times and terms, both of economic, political, and even now in these COVID-19 days. You've had to be very adaptable and flexible. Where do we go to from now?
Well, Andre, I think, we've had the ups and the downs over the past, in the early years. And as the clip depicted there, I think the property market in South Africa pre-COVID, and let's take it for the 18 months before COVID came into play, was already showing strains. There were cracks, and this was to do with the economic situation in South Africa. And so therefore, when COVID hit, it's almost very difficult to explain, but it was like a big tanker running, going in the ocean, and all of a sudden it hit this massive iceberg, boom, and it stopped, and it brought the entire property industry and everything to a standstill. Now, you must understand that for us in the property game, we deal with people all the time. We have people to our exciting launches. We have project, we communication, one-on-one, and of course that faded away, and we had to transform ourselves very quickly into a digital world, which is currently where we are at the moment. But nevertheless, through this period in COVID, we've managed to maintain ourselves, and we're still continuing with some very, very exciting new projects. But again, we will get through COVID. There will be times that we'll probably think to ourselves in 2-3 years' time, how did we exist through it? But I remain very optimistic that from a property perspective, you must remember that at this point in time is a very unique time, because we have interest rates today at the lowest level, well, certainly since I've been around, but they tell me since the 1920, 1925s. And in a property cycle, when the interest rates are at the lowest possible level, it normally means that the property market is starting to recover. And it's no better time to buy than now, because today you can buy and you don't need to rent, because it's cheaper to buy, because you're currently paying whatever you were paying on rent, you're actually paying less to the banks. So, why rent when you can buy? So from a timing perspective, and also because of COVID, it's put enormous pressure on the building industry. So one is getting very competitive building prices. And so if you look at it over time in terms of the cycle, this is the time to go ahead and buy your properties. You're not going to get a better time. You're getting very, very competitive prices. And then, of course, you've got this huge benefit of having this extraordinary low interest rates.
Yeah, Johnny, thanks. We're going to be spending some time together, and we're going to be unpacking some nice questions. That doesn't mean we've excluded you, the audience. If you would like to ask any questions, please go to the chat function and ask any questions that you have of Johnny or of the entire webinar. And what happens at the end, we're going to be addressing all those questions. That's not lost. Johnny, I'm just looking at the video again. I was just remembering those days of Pierre Botha and the Rubicon speech and Nelson Mandela. But we've seen this kind of crash before. We've seen economic crashes, and you have survived every single one of them. And can I say, not only survived, but prospered. But one of the things that the video shows me, which I actually really enjoy, is that you came from very modest beginnings. I think I saw something there about 2,000 Rand family loan started the business. Where did this love for property start, and how did it develop?
Well, I just finished studying at Connie Surveying at UCT, and I come from a family who were involved in the building industry, not directly in property or construction. They were subcontractors. My father used to make windows. So, a building was very much part of us, part of me. But, and in the early years, we did actually construct ourselves because that's, what I was taught. But my love for property and for being able to produce products for the property market and trying to be the first with the ideas and the concepts, that's where it really evolved. And I mean, if you look back into the early 80s, we invented the plot and plan concept in Cape Town and then nationally across South Africa, whereby, you could, if you had your own plot, in those days there was plenty of land available in the Western Cape, and specifically Cape Town, you could bring your plot to us, we would design you a house and we would build it for you. And that's how it all started. That evolved then into being in a situation where we started to acquire land ourselves. We had got a bit of a capital base behind us. And in the middle 80s, as the then government had substantial subsidies in play, first-time home buyer subsidies, it allowed us to really expand and into Joburg and Durban. And then came, which for me was the greatest opportunity, was in 1990, was the unbanning of the ANC. And that for me was an opportunity to work in public-private partnership with the then ANC government. And we did, and for me, the opportunity was around this impoverished communities. And in Cape Town, in Milnerton, there was a massive squatter camp on Coburg Road. And we went to the authorities and we said, look, we'll take away, we'll rebuild or rehouse that community into formal housing. And for that, we want the land around it so we can put in infrastructure and build factories and shopping, and therefore create urban planning where we can have everybody a plan for estates where everybody is on the one site, as from the past, allowing people which then had to travel large distances to get into the city to get to work. It was very successful. In fact, President Mandela at the time, in 94, I think it was, opened up the Reconstruction and Development Program, mentioning that this is how they want to see the reconstruction and development taking place. And we followed that up in Westlake at the end of the Blue Route, where same thing, right next to the Paulsburg prison, a massive, a lot of people living in terrible conditions. And we were then able to also rehouse that community, where we had the poorest of the poor living alongside the richest of the rich. We built an American embassy. There was a private school, Redden Private School, and housing and industrial and commercial. Again, the whole aspect of renewal and rethinking how we do our urban planning. So, these were really major projects. And when the opportunity came in 2002 to buy Century City from Nedbank, it then allowed us the opportunity to buy 1.4 million square meters of bulk to produce a city where we can plan for live, work, and play. Again, along revitalizing, Century City as an area, and it allowed us to do this incredible project, which is still ongoing today. And this is where the whole aspect was changing, and we then thought, well, we haven't done anything in the center of Cape Town, and we did the Radisson and the picture behind me, trying to produce buildings where we have retail below on the ground floor and then accommodation above it. So there's a whole mixed use element. So it's just not a building standing by itself, and that creates the vibe and the energy for these projects. And they've been successful. And now with this post-COVID period, or in between, let's put it that way, we're again reevaluating to stay ahead of the game with our WEX development, which we'll debate later, and some projects that we've got in Sea Point and also in Frederick here in Cape Town, where we're producing incredible value for money projects, where we can never repeat these values because it's in, as I alluded to earlier on, in the dip of we can buy land cheaper, we can have these incredibly low interest rates, and we can construct cheaper. So that's why I've come back to saying it's a great time to buy.
You've always been a thought leader, Johnny. When I look at that magnificent building that was behind you, it really is absolutely beautiful. But for some of those listeners and the people out there in the webinar that are maybe slightly younger, you've alluded to the fact that you were one of the first people to bring about terms like plot and plan. I mean, we regarded as part of business to actually landscape a property was unheard of in the 80s. And literally, the other thing which I love is things like furnishings, and then you've gone under the show houses. But the one idea which is central, and even if I can expand that through to the Century City concept and some of the other places you've built, is almost you designing an entire lifestyle, but it essentially starts around having home ownership. And if you chat about that.
We've always, if you think about home ownership, it's a cornerstone of any democracy. If you look in the United States, in fact, I was watching CNBC last night, the housing starts in the US are a major indicator on the United States economy. So people, and at this point in time in the US, housing starts are going through the roof. People are wanting to build, and they and they want to own, because that is something, when you own your first property, you're in the property market, whether you buy at 100,000 Rand here, or you're 200,000 or 500 or a million or 10 million. Once you're in the property market, you get onto the ladder, and it is a way of creating wealth, as in for individuals. Coming back to your points, why we don't just look at a piece of land and say, okay, we're going to build it. It's got to be in the right area. It's got to conform to the urban renewal or the mixed use developments that we want to put on play. But most people don't, purchasers, whether at whatever level in the property market, don't really understand reading off the plan. And therefore we have to simulate fully furnished show houses or apartments, or to give purchasers who buy from us an exact idea of what they're going to be getting, so they can see it and they can visualize it, and they can walk into and touch and feel it. And this has been a very important part of our marketing. Yes, we do sell off the plan, and we've been able to do that very successfully, because we're going to hold the hand of our purchasers right from the minute they sign, right until they move in, right through their maintenance. And many of those purchasers who bought from us in the 80s and 90s have come back. So, this large following that follows our projects, and we always tending to sell below market value. We would never, 15 to 20% always cheaper than anybody around us. So those have been very important principles in protecting our brand, which we value so much. That we are trustworthy, we've been around, and we continue to produce at the highest level. And I think that's what I enjoy doing most.
And I think it's probably one of the secrets of your success. I think what you've built is you actually almost created a future for people. You've created an opportunity, a space for people to aspire to. And I think it's been one of your huge credits. And I think in your legacy, people are going to look back and say, it wasn't just about the money, it wasn't just about the developments, it was about creating a sustainable lifestyle for people from the very, very poor to the very rich as well. So for me, I think your legacy is in good hands. There's one thing, and you're speaking to the big positive guy. I'm a man who worked in Europe, and then one day just woke up and realized that I was missing my country enormously, and I had to come home. And so my business name is now the big positive guy. But I think I have a huge competitor. John, you're very positive yourself. You always come across as positive. We've been through a very difficult couple of months now. What is your outlook on the future of property and business in the country and those things in general?
Yeah, it's a good question. Andre, I'm positive. I always have been. I suppose that's my character. But I see opportunity when times are turbulent. So when it's jumping all over the place like it is at the moment, for me, that's the time of opportunity. I'm a South African. I'm a patriot. I love my country. I love Cape Town specifically. And I want to still continue to make a difference, and be able to produce products that are in touch with the current scenarios. It's exceptionally difficult. I think you can imagine. We all know what the impact of COVID has had on, not let alone this country, but the world. And therefore, it's like a reset. Now, we don't think about resetting because of COVID. We're resetting because that's what really the market is telling us, to go and do things differently. And it's like a cycle. I mean, this was no different in 2008, maybe not as severe because that wasn't medical, that was financial. But you had to do something different to change, to stay in the game and continue to trade. So I remain an optimist. I'm optimistic about South Africa. We've got issues, but we're going to work through those issues. And property is a cornerstone. It's a major part of creating wealth for the majority of our population. And we will continue to develop products that cover all aspects of the property sector.
Johnny, from your lips to God's ears, I share your sentiment, and I think very often we're too quick to jump on the downward spiral. I very often have discovered that in moments like this, in very difficult times, very often your greatest opportunities come along. And some people grab them, and some people don't grab them. Johnny, one of the things that's quite obvious with you is you're a man who enjoys partnerships. You've been in partnership with a friend of yours for many years. You were very keen to take on the public and private partnerships, but even in your selection of service providers, and we're really fortunate today to have the services here today of BetterBond. We have the CEO and the National Development Manager, so we've got some hectic players here today. How important is partnerships to you?
Very much. It's a absolute fundamental cornerstone of my philosophy. The property market in itself is complex, and you get specialists. We've worked closely over the years with the banks as partners, with the construction companies as partners. It depends on the circumstances with landowners. We spent 8 years on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, so we know what it's like to have many shareholders. And therefore, we got equipped to deal with partnerships, and there's enough to go around for everybody. So therefore, partnerships, and let alone, it's not only, it's within the Rabie Property Group, it's within Signatura, New World, our new overseas venture. We have partners and partners within our company. So everybody is there to gain, and we believe in sharing. Sharing is always been a philosophy for me, because the more you share, the more you'll gain in the bigger picture.
So I think if you want to watch where property is going to, I think one of the first things you need to do is watch what Johnny is doing. And so, Johnny, let's just talk about some of the opportunities that you're currently working on, because you didn't seem to slow down too much in lockdown and stuff, and you've got a couple of things on the market at the moment. Let's maybe just start off talking about the quarter in the Waterkant.
Sure. Cape Town, to us, and being such a great city, there's a picture of the quarter. The Waterkant is a great little inner city suburb in Cape Town, and there's no land available. This was an old parking lot, and you talk about partnerships where the building next door came to us, the owner of that building, and said, "Look, I've got this parking lot. What do you think?" And we came up with that beautiful building called the Court, a very, very prime site, and it's been very successful. We've still got a couple of limited opportunities available, and we'll be finished there in about 4 or 5 months' time.
What a magnificent building. I mean, goodness me. It's really something that I think adds to the beauty of the Cape. But one of your ones that you're really proud of is something called WEX. And you believe this is one of the big opportunities in the property market at the moment. Let's talk about WEX.
Oh, well, WEX, we liked Woodstock, and why we liked Woodstock was because it was in need of renewal from a perspective. There were lots of older factories, and we had the opportunity where the existing WEX is. There, popped up over there. On the left-hand side is the existing WEX, and we created with the owners of the Stock Exchange, our WEX 1, and we've identified this as a precinct very close to the city of Cape Town. It's 5 minutes to provide affordable accommodation at WEX, and we're very excited with our WEX 2 project and WEX 3 projects, which will be coming to the market very shortly at very affordable prices, starting from about 750, 800,000. Up, to the early 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 in that order. And that, again, at WEX is not about a building. It's about a building with retail below, mixed use, and then to the added facilities of the gyms and the swimming pools. And we have a hotel inside the WEX called the Stock Exchange, very successful. Woodstock is a prime area for overseas visitors for the art, and they come very, very popular. So we're very excited about Woodstock as a renewal area, as is around the world, areas being renewed in the great cities of the world. We're just following the trend.
Yeah, again, an absolutely magnificent building, and not one that is, it's already something that's up and ready, and now we're starting by talking about phases 2 and 3. And so I really think that's a massive opportunity. Woodstock and some of these areas around Cape Town, for me, have always remained potentially one of the best property opportunities that we have. But I just keep listening more and more, getting more and more excited about the different things that you've got. You've got another opportunity at Deer Park, which is right underneath the mountain.
Yes, again, we always get back to the partnerships, but somebody that I know, and we rezoned the land, very, difficult in that part of the world. There it is. You can see the existing building standing. We're going to demolish that. And we satisfied all the neighbors, very sensitive area, overlooking a beautiful little park. Vredok is a unique area in Cape Town because it's one of the few areas that faces due north. So you get beautiful views over the city and towards Robben Island. And again, it's in the periphery. It's 3-4 minutes. You're just down the road and you're in the CBD of Cape Town. So again, producing really nice product at 24 units there. Where we can be in these prime areas, developed areas, we like to be there because we can come in and produce really quality products. And these products, we live in an inflationary scenario in South Africa. So we know that inflation will cause house prices to go up. But not only that, you also have the supply-demand equation whereby that in itself is, the shortage of supply creates a demand, and therefore our products are in demand. So again, I always say property, you've got to be in the right spot. You've got to be in the right area. You have to have the quality. You have to have the design. You have to have the landscaping. And then you can really, you have something that's special. Like that building behind me on the screen now, the Onyx, was the old Nedbank headquarters, which we joint ventured with Nedbank to convert it into a magnificent apartment building with a hotel on the first 2 floors called the Onyx, in this prime area right opposite the convention center, just a few minutes walk from the waterfront. So again, it was prime, and therefore it holds its value and it appreciates.
If you're watching us on Facebook Live, you're watching myself, the big positive guy, in conversation with Cape Town and national property legend Johnny Rabie. And Johnny, your surprises never stop. So if I want to get something a little bit closer to the beach, have you got something available for me there as well?
Yeah, well, we thought we have been doing quite a bit of work in Sea Point and Greenpoint, but a nice opportunity popped up right in the heart of Sea Point, just up the road from La Perla, where the Sea Point Pavilion is. And again, we're trying to produce something that's really affordable, and we've come up with a product around, starting from around the R1 million mark. And that is never been seen in Sea Point at that value. It's 75, 80 units. We're going to be launching it in November. Again, we like to be disruptors in being able to get people to get really interested because they can see they can buy value. And that's what we're doing. And that's what you do, as I've alluded to on numerous occasions. That's what you do in tough times. You've got to keep changing, adapting. It's like a rugby side, you can't play always the same game. You've got to keep changing the game plan. That's how I suppose we won the World Cup last year.
Absolutely. Johnny, we're about to open up the floor to questions from the audience, and maybe to bring in BetterBond and your marketing on Signatura. What's your vision for Signatura? I mean, what are you hoping to get out of it? And if people are interested in any of those developments that you see, who would they contact?
Yeah, Signatura is a specialist inner city developer. It's a brand that I created. It's a private label brand, and it concentrates in and around the environments of Cape Town. And we have Anton McAlone and Michael, 2 brothers. Anton and Michael are both work for us and are intimately have the knowledge of the projects that I've alluded to, the one in Sea Point, the one in Vredok, and of course the Woodstock Exchange. And they will be able to answer any question any purchaser wants, or any information, where the websites are, etc., etc. So those are the go-to guys, and they'll be able to give anybody asks information.
We're not going to go there today, but obviously one of the things that I think is very exciting is that you've expanded to start selling internationally as well, and you formed a new company called New World. Maybe if people are interested, they can go chat with you. You've got some amazing developments in Portugal at the moment, which include a golden visa, out of interest. If you're interested in buying property and getting a residency of Portugal. That's also something that you might want to chat to them about. But Johnny, you remember we spoke about just show houses originally and floor plans and stuff. Well, we've got one step further now. So it's not just videos. From what I understand, one of your young gentlemen is going to walk us through one of the apartments at Vex.
Yes. I think
Michael, if you got your cell phone already there, maybe you can take us for a quick walkthrough and show us what the apartment. This is really live, so we physically doing this with his cell phone. He's unplugging us and walking us through the actual building. So go for it there, Michael.
Thanks, Andre. Let me just get up here just to show you guys where we are. This is our little sales center that we have at the WEX 2, which is in Woodstock. We've actually designed the sales center on the ground floor of our BetterBond building that's already complete. So let me just walk you through here. So we've actually built a show flat to scale of a 25 square apartment that is available at WEX 2. It's an exact replica of what we will be building, which we started building across the road. So I'm just gonna walk slowly through. So you've got your kitchen on your right-hand side over here, and you've got some built-in cupboard with your fridge. If you go to your left, you've got your bathroom. You've got your shower just behind the door on the right-hand side here. It might come a bit zoomed in a bit too much, but let me try. I'm going back into the living room. So in front of us here is actually a drone shot from the first floor of WEX 2, which will give you a view of Table Mountain. We've actually got a big, large sliding door here as well. And I'm just going to turn around. So this is 25 squares, fully furnished and looking good.
Michael, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I've lived in Europe for several years, and one of the things that I'm quite used to is what we used to call there micro apartments. I see a lot of micro apartments are popping out today. Why is this, and what is the benefit?
Well, I think, you know, we've been doing buildings, and a lot of recent buildings have been doing micro apartments. And the feedback that we get from people that are renting in our buildings that are complete already is that some people are willing to sacrifice larger apartments, sacrifice potentially parking to get a brand new apartment at affordable pricing, which is kind of where our WEX 2 building fits into everything. So for 25 squares here, you can get something that you can purchase as opposed to renting, and be very, very close, or if not be the same as what your rental price will be, is from what your bond repayment will be. But you get your own apartment at the end of the day, which is brand new, which comes from a well-known or established developer with all your rent, your builder's guarantees and come in place, and you get to stay in a state-of-the-art building with good security and close proximity to town. I mean, we're in Woodstock here, which is 2 kilometers from the city center, so some people don't actually need cars that either work in the area or work in town.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic opportunity. And as yesterday we were chatting with Johnny, and that was one of the things that came out quite clearly is that very rarely do we have a scenario where it's as cheap to buy as it is to rent. And we literally have that kind of scenario that's happening at the moment. And I think that's quite special and creates an opportunity for many more people to go into the property market. We're very blessed today to have Carl Kutsia from here. Carl, are you there? Let's just see if we can find him quickly. Carl is the CEO of BetterBond. Carl, I've got lots of questions here, and quite a few of them regard finance. So if I can shoot one or two of them at you.
No, please do, Andre.
This is a difficult one because they're not asking you to sell. They're saying, is this a good time to buy? And what trends are you seeing from the bank's perspective, from the bank's lending perspective? Are they keen to give us money?
Yeah, Andre, and it's a good question, and we get asked this question quite a bit. I think John was talking a little bit earlier around the interest rates. Now, you know, if you look at what happened in the past sort of 6 months, and if there's one thing I must say, if there's one silver lining about about COVID and what it's done to the economy is the interest rates that it's forced down. So we've seen almost a 30% reduction in interest rates in this past sort of 6 months. And, you know, is it a good time to buy? Well, from a funding point of view, from getting a bond point of view, well, it'll be the cheapest that you will find in the past 50 years. So from that point of view, definitely a good time to buy. Obviously, you know, just be responsible about it. If you have a stable income, then definitely, you know, there's a lot of things that really plays in your favor. Another one is the transfer duty threshold, which has now been lifted up to R1 million. So anything below R1 million, you know, you won't pay any transfer duties for. And also, again, making it a bit more affordable for consumers in the market to get into the property market. John also spoke about that a little bit earlier. So, you know, now's a great time to do that. If you ask them from the bank's perspective, you know, initially when COVID hit, we were quite worried. In 2008, we saw, you know, when that big crash came, we saw a lot of the banks pulling back some of the lending, but we haven't seen it this time around, fortunately. We see the banks are still competing quite well. They are making sure there's liquidity in the market. I think it's part of their role, and they understand that. And we have seen the banks, you know, still lending quite healthy. You know, we haven't even seen a slight drop in conversion rates, but ever so slightly. And you can sort of understand that in some sectors that they don't want to lend to. But in general, very healthy market, and the banks are definitely lending at the moment.
I love that one little bit about no transfer duties up to R1 million, and maybe ties in with quite a nice question. Maybe if I can ask Anton to tackle this one. Just give me a scenario of what it's like to buy an apartment for R1 million. What are my repayments? What are my fees? Give me all the ins and outs. What do I need to buy a R1 million apartment?
So Andre, to buy R1 million apartments, I think the first thing buying from us as a developer is that you don't pay transfer duty, whatever the price is. So whether it's 800,000 or R1.5 million, there's no transfer duty payable. The VAT which is paid over to us, South African Revenue Service, is included in the purchase price, and you can actually, you know, if you're paying R1 million and you're paying a deposit, you can actually fund that. You don't have to pay that tax. You know, it's not a cash outlay. For example, on a 950,000 rand apartment at Wex 2, you could pay a 5% deposit, which is in the order of 47,500. And on a bond of 20 years, the balance on that at, say, prime, you'd be paying about 8,000 rand a month, which is in the order of what you could possibly be paying as a rental. So again, just to echo what everyone else has said, you know, it makes, you know, the fundamentals to buy now is hugely in favor of purchasers to purchase instead of renting. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really is a very favorable time. I'm thinking about, I don't know where you live, but I live in Pinelands, and an 8,000 rand rental is almost an impossibility here. For 8,000 rand, you'd be lucky to get a garden flat. So I think these are real opportunities. Johnny, if you're still there, I'd like to ask you a question. I'm going to merge two questions together. It says, they always say buy low, sell high. Will and can this market go any lower? And the other question was very similar. How long do you think the interest rates will stay this low?
Okay, I just want to add on something to what Michael was saying at Wex. You're buying an apartment from us, but that also includes the facilities in the development, which are a beautiful gym, beautiful bar facilities, and for meeting people. You know, that's all included in the price of the R1 million or the 1.1 or whatever the figure is for whichever apartment. So what we're trying to achieve there is that because you're buying into that precinct, you are afforded the opportunity to use all the facilities. Okay, coming back to the interest rates, or where I see the market, I see the interest rates probably at this level for the next year, 18 months, sort of flatlining, and then it will start to go up, because once things improve and things get better and there's better sentiment and we get through the COVID, South Africa, in my view, will recover quickly, and then inflation will come into play, and then interest rates will rise, but and slowly. So, you know, people, there's still, we've got to get the confidence back to South Africans. So South Africans are a little bit punch drunk at the moment. There's lots going on. We need confidence. And if we can get that confidence be led by the government, this country's got enormous potential. I do see that property prices will increase. And over time, as I've alluded to, property prices are at rock bottom now. We can't go lower than that. Because we all these factors that I've mentioned come into play. So the timing of buying from me in any of these projects that we're involved in is valued, and we'll appreciate over time, and we'll appreciate quickly.
Johnny, you've obviously stirred a pot here because the questions are coming in fast and furious. So if you're listening on Facebook, what we're having here today, this afternoon, is a discussion between myself, the big positive guy, and property legend Johnny Rabie. And we're discussing about property in general, and we've got a live audience in the webinar, as well as this is being streamed on Facebook. Muguse has come up with a good question. I think maybe I'm going to throw this one at Carl. Carl, is it better to get a fixed interest rate now when you're financing a property, or should we leave it to float? Can you actually get a fixed one, and what are the banks saying at the
moment? Again, I'm getting asked that question quite a bit because it's so low at the moment. A lot of people are wanting to fix it. So in general, South Africa's banks look at interest rates, and by default, they give you a variable interest rate. So they don't fix it up front, where we see in other markets, the US market, where they see it quite differently. But bring it back to South Africa, you can fix your interest rate, but the bank typically won't fix it at the current rate. They will price in their risk for the future, and they will probably give you prime plus a couple of percentage points to fix that rate. So important to note that. Firstly, if you want to do that, and they won't fix for the whole term of the bond. So generally, our bonds are 20-year terms, and you might get a fixed rate for 5 years, where after that you have to renegotiate with the bank. So my advice to consumers would be, think carefully before you do that. You might be paying a little bit more now than what you would, and understanding that in let's say 5 years time that you have to renegotiate that rate.
Fantastic. There's lots of questions coming. Can I just say there are more questions than we're going to be able to get through. So I promise you what I will do afterwards is I will give the question to Johnny and his team, and they will respond to every single one of your questions. So if you're not getting your question answered or asked, don't stress, we will make sure. So if you've got any questions, please ask them. Some great questions, by the way. There's one question I want to say, but Terry, while we're doing this, we had a short poll. We were quite interested to hear what you guys thought. So I'm going to ask a question of Michael, and Michael, while you're answering, we're going to throw up a poll. For those of you who haven't seen an internet poll or a Zoom poll before, the question is just, are you thinking about buying property in the next 6 months? Yes, no, or maybe just hover over it and click your mouse. And what factors are the most important that you're looking for? Location, size, proximity to work. And then if you scroll down, I think there is a third question. Yes, there's a third question as well. So if you just want to tick it there, I see that people know that secure parking is coming up as an essential. So while you're just doing that, Michael, if I can ask you the following question. I, as the crow flies, live very, very close to Woodstock. And I've been hearing for years and years that they're redeveloping Woodstock. And I must say, when I drive down there, I do see an enormous amount of development. But you're right there at the moment. Is it really developing? And if you want to develop in Woodstock, what is the secret?
Sorry, just repeat that question. Sorry, just repeat the end part there.
It's just, everyone's talking about developing Woodstock. Is it really happening? Because we see some of it's been changing. Is it really developing and becoming a new hub? Whatever, I don't know what the fancy word is for it. And what's the secret of building and developing in Woodstock?
Yeah, Andre, that's a good question. I think people have been talking about Woodstock for a very long time. We launched our Wex 1 building in 2016, which was 200 units plus. We had a lot of people asking that question at the time, and now I think everyone that bought then are quite happy with the answers now, because we sold out the whole Wex 1 building. And in the last sort of 2 years, there's been a few other developments that have come up in the Woodstock area in sort of close vicinity. So there's a big sort of move to Woodstock. What we hear from the renting side as well is that some people are willing to mean, the prices are cheaper in Woodstock than what it is elsewhere. And I think people are starting to realize that Woodstock is a very short commute to the city centre and surround. And I think once again, like we were saying earlier, is that people would prefer to live a little bit closer to where they work and save that commute. And yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things. So in our building that we have here, now that we have these 200 units, spas open up at the bottom. We've got a Darling Brew here as well, Simply Asia. So a lot of this is happening as sort of the areas get built up again. And there's more residents moving into the area and more retail opens up, which then supports those residents. So that's what's been happening with Woodstock, and it's been doing very well for us. With Wex 2 that we brought online as well now, we've close to selling half of what the stock that we have there. And this keeps on continuing, and you can see that in the years to come. You know, I think Woodstock will become more of an extension of town as opposed to an extension of Salt River or Observatory of what it is now.
Fantastic. We're getting close to the end, so I'm probably going to try for another 2 questions, maybe 3 if we can go fast. I just want to say to all our listeners on Facebook, you are watching The Big Positive Guy in conversation with our legendary property guru, Johnny Rabie. We're speaking about property generally. I just wanted to say is that for the people that are in the room, all your questions will be answered. Even if we don't manage to get through all of them and stuff, we will make sure that somebody addresses them and sends them through. And for those people that are on Facebook, may I suggest that we get a hold of Signatura. Terry, if we can just bring up those details of Anton and Michael, they can help you with all kinds of questions. And while you just bring up that slide, if I can maybe ask Johnny another question. Johnny, it's not quite in the scope of this morning's discussion, but people are asking, for those investors that want to broaden their portfolios, is this the time for us to start thinking about overseas? And I'll ask you that question specifically because you have just gone international and buying some properties there as well. So I'll leave that slide up with Anton and Michael for a few minutes. And Johnny, if you can just overspeak it.
Yeah, look, I think when you're looking at offshore, I think wherever you are in the world, you're going to have a broad-based portfolio. And therefore, you want to encapsulate in that offshore investments. And we like Lisbon very much. We're active in Lisbon. We've got an office there. We've got strong partners. And therefore, if one doesn't have an offshore exposure, one should definitely look at it from acquiring a property from a reputable developer, because there's great opportunity. Portugal is a great country. We liked it. Very similar to South Africa in many ways, and they operate similarly to us. There's no crime. It's got beautiful beaches. So we really like and are really proceeding with great success in Portugal. So yes, the question is, if you can have a broader based portfolio, including offshore, it would be sensible to be able to broaden your portfolio that way.
Fantastic. Carl, if I can ask you a question there. Now that we've got rid of the property developers and the salespeople, now we can go back and speak like financiers and say, it's wonderful to say we're the lowest part of the market. It's wonderful to say we've got low interest rates. But the reality is that a BetterBond is positioned as one of the largest providers of bonds, and you guys see enormous numbers, and maybe you can just hint at that and tell us what you actually do, is what's really happening down on the ground. I know it's only been a month or so since we've been open, but what's really happening? Are we seeing all these first-time buyers that we're speaking about? Is this a real phenomenon, or are we just hearing sales speak?
I mean, you're not only hearing sales speak. So from when we went from level 4 to 3 in our lockdown period, we, obviously our volumes, like everybody else, was almost at zero while we were in lockdown. And all of a sudden we saw the volumes moving up, and that sort of first month of what was it, June, I thought, well, there's a bit of pent-up demand, and the volume started increasing, and by the end of that month, we were ahead of what we normally do in a June if we compare it to last year. But again, I thought it was pent-up demand, but more and more we saw that playing out in July. And we're doing volumes now in August, which was July's case as well, of 50% above what we did last year this time. Now, I think most of that heavy pent-up demand is played out, and we can really see, you know, the impact of low interest rates in this lending environment where first-time buyers are taking this opportunity. So great volumes at the moment, not just sales speak. We see it every day, and it's just continuing to be very, very good in the market. And yeah, we're very grateful for that. And in terms of first-time buyers, we also saw a very interesting shift in our stats in this. So pre-lockdown, normally around 60% of our volumes was from first-time buyers, and we saw that moving up to where we're sitting now, to around 70% of all our volumes are first-time buyers. And if you just look at this interest rate, you know, it's 30% more affordable now to buy a home, and we can see that that market is swelling because of new entrants into that market, which play a bit favorably for developers out there, definitely.
Yeah, and if I can ask you to play Guru Nostradamus, what would you do if you were a young first-time buyer or somebody looking at investing? Do you think this is a good time? Do you think really, of all the times that we've had and all the troubles that we've had, is this a good time to get in the market?
Yeah, so property remains one of those investments that, you know, has value, and for the long term, you know, we haven't seen that change. So if I was a young investor at this time, you know, if I knew I had a stable income, a stable job, I would definitely get into this market. You know, just benefit from these lending conditions, and all these great developments that's out there, and just get your foot into the door. I think Johnny was mentioning it earlier as well. It's, you know, when you get your foot into the door, the next time it just becomes easier. You can sell, you can make some proceeds, and you can buy yourself a bigger place. But you know, get in there as soon as what you can and start paying off your own bond. You know, that just makes absolute sense.
Yeah, I'm devastated to move on, because some of these questions are great. Just one here saying, I'm finding it so much more expensive than Gauteng. Well, you really need to get a hold of Johnny Rabie, because Johnny Rabie will find you a property, I promise you, that you'll be able to afford, and compare it to something that you get in Gauteng. But maybe if we could just finish off, if I could just say to Carl, thank you. I know you're a busy CEO, one of the biggest companies in the country. I just want to say thank you so much for making your time. To Jenny Rishel, who's been hiding behind the scenes as well, to Anton and to Michael from Signatura. Boys, I'm going to send you all the details and all those questions, and you guys can do it. If anybody else wants any more questions answered, especially for those people that are live on Facebook, the people to contact, and if we can just bring it up for a few seconds again, Terry, if you can call these two numbers, Anton and Michael, if you've got any questions in terms of property, and it doesn't have to be about any of these particular developments, if you just want to have some questions, and I see there are lots of questions about how do I get into the market, and how do I get it settled, and how do I start property portfolios? These are great questions, guys. None of them are stupid questions, and they're always good to have it there. But yeah, these are the two guys that I would contact if you want to do. I think they are really on the ground working with these properties, and very much the investment and what I would say affordable properties. And I think they can even give you some direction in terms if you want to look at Portugal or look at those golden visa opportunities and things. So Anton and Michael from Signatura, the company to remember there is Signatura, and you can maybe look at that. But maybe the man who should be finishing off today is Johnny Rabie. Johnny Rabie, 2020, we're at stage level 2. You've done it all. Tell us what's happening in the future.
Yeah, you know, thank you, Andre. I again believe in my country, in our country, and I believe the opportunities are going to come. We need to build. We need to get the economy going, and once that happens, and I believe it will, we will fly. We have in Cape Town one of the great cities of the world. From a tourist perspective, it is the most beautiful place, and I wouldn't think of ever seeing anything that can ever be close to my home. And I honestly believe, and exactly what BetterBond is saying, now's the time. You're not going to get it again, because the dynamics are changing all the time. And So COVID has done us a favor in that it's allowed us to acquire property at better prices because there's stress. And therefore, we passing that on. And the products that we have now for the next month, a couple of months, 5-6 months to a year, are incredible value for money. And if you can borrow at below 7%, 6.5%, 6.75%, sure. Why pay rent if you can own? And if you can get into the market, once you're in, boy, you can create wealth. And that's what's happened to lots of people in South Africa and around the world in their prospective property markets.
Johnny Rabie, property developer extraordinaire. It's been a pleasure speaking to you this morning. I'm delighted to have had this opportunity and just to hear and learn from your wisdom. It's been an absolute pleasure for me. This is not the end of the recording. However, Johnny and I will be signing off. What we are going to do, we have 3 videos for you. If anybody is interested in seeing a little bit more about WEX or some of these other developments, some really professionally designed and organized and filmed videos. If you want to stay on board, if anybody has some specific questions, Anton and Michael are going to stay on. And if anybody wants to speak to them, then you're most welcome to. So I will be in the background here. But in the meantime, my thanks to Terry Winship from Medita Concepts for running this morning's technicalities. Terry, well done. You've done an excellent job. And not only have you done an excellent job, you've done it despite the fact that you're undergoing load shedding at the moment. So I think that's quite extraordinary. So big hand to you, Terry, and congratulations. And to the rest of the team, thank you for participating. It's been an outstanding hour for me. I've learned a lot. And if you want to stay on, you're most welcome to, and to watch these really rather extraordinary videos. I am the Big Positive Guy. God bless you all and stay safe.
I'm gonna take you on a ride. We're gonna burn through the night. Why you're so salty? I'll still take a bite.
Okay, we can take my Lambo. I'll put on a tight show. You sure you can handle? We be faster than Django.
I'm gonna take you on a ride. We're gonna burn through the night. Why you're so salty? I'll still take a bite.
We can take my Lambo. I'll put on a tight show. You sure you can handle? We be faster than Django.
Can't stop, won't stop. I can't stop, won't stop. I can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop.
So salty.
You sure you can handle? Okay. We can take my Lambo. I'll put on a tight show. You sure you can handle? We be faster than Django. Can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. I can't stop, won't stop. I can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop. Can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop, can't stop. Can't stop.
I'm gonna take you on a ride. We're gonna burn through the night. Why you're so salty? I'll still take a bite.
Okay, we can take my Lambo. I'll put on a tight show.
Sorry, I think I just need to move to the next video. Give me a second.
talking about properties, we're talking about things that we hope will stand for a long period of time. So you're always trying to bring out the best of what's already around.
When this journey started, I knew that the most important thing about the project was to express that creativity, what's happening behind the scenes in Woodstock.
It's about creating a precinct here where not only our owners and residents will feel great about being here, but it'll actually attract people into this area who would have never come here before.
So the idea was to have 3 different styles of apartments. We've got the urban jungle, urban arts and urban pattern, and we furnished all of the rooms with pieces only made and designed in Woodstock. And I think that's what's really going to be special about staying here. The magnificent views, beautiful building and access to the energy of Woodstock.
I'm actually kind of slightly with a loss of words, I have to say. I think it's just really beyond our own expectations as an architectural team. I think from those first visuals to what we see now, it's the reality has come true, and it's a real fantasy. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. I think the whole team has worked together to produce this. Has been incredible.
Well, we're very excited about WEX 1. We are right in the heart of the public transport. We have a Mars City bus stop right outside, not even 20 meters walk from your front door, a train station, and we have the bicycle routes, again, 5 meters from the front door.
And then just sitting here looking at this view of Cape Town from a very different perspective with all the action of the railway line, the harbour in the distance, it's beyond expectations, as I said right at the beginning.
I don't think that this is just an apartment that you're living in. This is a whole new way of living.
Everybody, and welcome. Over all the years, it's always this crisis to get these buildings finished. This one's a particular big one, and in all my 40 years, and I've said this to Paolo, this is the best we've ever done.